This is Ankita, no Nalini here, and you are tuned in to Prickly Pears, the podcast where we celebrate uninhibited brown women and their prickly points of view. This is season 3, the season where we talk about long term relationships, and today we have our second couple ever on the show, Natasha and Bob. Please introduce yourselves to our listeners today.
Hi everyone, I'm Natasha Fernandez, based out of Bangalore, approximately 36 years old, divorced once, and I'm going to be very honest, and now in a 6-year long relationship with my Bob.
Hi, Ankita. Hi, everybody. I am Bob. I am a musician. I am 36. I play for an indie band called As We Keep Searching. I've been doing this for about 10 odd years, and 6 of which I've spent with Natasha. And yeah, it's fun to be here.
Thank you. I'm so glad to have you here. And I have a lot of questions for the two of you. So I'm going to jump straight in. And I'm going to start with our standard question. How did you think about long term relationships, romantic relationships through your life, right? So talk to me about if you ever thought of it when you were teenagers. What were your opinion on it when you were in your 20s? And then now that you're approaching or just have crossed mid 30s, what's your opinion on it now?
For me, I think as I was growing up, my mom and dad were absolutely in love with each other. I cannot tell you how crazy it is. It's still the same way 40 years later. And I think growing up, I always thought that's what life was going to be. I'm going to be like my mom, I'm going to find someone like my dad, and I'm going to get married. It didn't turn out that way. But yeah, I think that's what I thought of it long term. But when I started growing up, I think between my 20s and 30s, I realized that it wasn't going to be easy, at least in the new day and age that both men and women work, you're exposed to so much. And I got married very, very early on. So once I got married and got divorced, I was like, yeah, I've done that. So maybe, it was for my mom and dad, but it's not for me. And I'm just going to take it slow, explore myself, love myself, do all those things. So I think it evolved over time and it's very different even now. At least now, what I believe is that you don't have to get married. I think, as in a long term relationship that we are, I feel like I have everything in this and it'll only be symbolic to get married. And I think that's what I think of long term relationships. Marriage should just be another thing that you add, but it shouldn't be something that you grew up thinking that you have to do, like I did.
Give us more details. Like at what age did you get married? And how did you find the person? Was it through the apps or
Oh no, I met this person because he was a senior in college and I was 24 when I got married. I didn't want to. I went to my parents because they were started, just like every Indian family, they send you bio datas and like meet this boy, meet that boy. And I wasn't the kind that wanted to waste time meeting anybody. I was like, hey, I'm dating someone and I want to get to know this person. And my mom and dad were of the firm belief that you can still get married and get to know the person. You don't have to not get married. And it was a big fight between my parents and me saying, hey, you found the boy, get married. And I was like, yeah, I know I found the boy, but I don't want to get married. And I gave in. It was one of those things that I did for my parents. And that's when I realized that, no, I should have pushed harder because it's different once you get married.
how long did you know your
My previous
ex?
partner,
Yeah.
2 years before we got married. Yeah.
Okay. And that's long by most Indian marriage standards. Like usually
Yeah.
if you go by the matrimony, it's like 6 months, get married.
Yeah, easy. So I had
Yeah.
already like pushed everything off for 2 years. And that's why I think I caved in like, oh yeah, 2 years. How bad can it get from here? It can't.
And then how many years were you married for?
Oh, this is a good one. 7.
Okay.
Yeah, like a long time. I gave it my best shot. I didn't have support from my parents to walk away from this. Every time I went to them saying, hey, this is becoming a little bit of my problem, more a problem. I was seeping into depression. I kept reaching out and I was like, no, divorce is just not happening. Go figure it out. And I think somewhere at the fifth year mark is when I was like, okay, I'm not going to get help if I don't do this myself. And I applied for a transfer through my company and I went to Bombay just like that. Like I picked up overnight and I left and I And then I took decisions in my hand and applied for a divorce and things like that. So I was married for 5, separated for 2, and then I got divorced at the end of the 7th.
Okay. And then when you got separated, what was the gap between then until you met Bob? Or were there other men in between?
There were no men in between. I
Okay.
wasn't on any. That's what I keep telling him. I wasn't on any apps. I didn't do any of that. I think the gap was about a year and a half, and that whole year and a half, I shut out everybody possible. Like I went and adopted a dog. And I adopted a sick dog so that I didn't have to step out of the house and I could keep making excuses to everybody saying, "Oh, my dog is sick. I need to be home and take care of him."
I mean, he happened to be sick.
He
I
and he
don't think
happened
you
to
adopted him because he was sick.
Yeah, that's true though. So I was fostering him before I adopted him. So, and I did that. I didn't want to step out of my comfort zone at all. And my sister was also in Bombay with me. I mean, she was working, she's a lawyer, she was working there, and she was leaving, getting married, and going to Canada. And she's like, if I leave from here without figuring out your life, you're going to be locked up in this house. And COVID hadn't happened then yet. So she put me in touch with one of his friends. And she came home along with my sister and she said, "You know what? There's a concert happening tonight. Get out." And I was like, "Oh, but I have a dog." And she's like, "Yes, your dog is fine. You can go back home right after the concert, but step out." And that was the first time in 1.5 years that I moved to Bombay. Did I step out of the house to meet friends? My friends would come, I love my friends. They would come home and spend the whole Sunday with me and then not force me to get out of the house. But this was the first time that I stepped out and I met Bob.
So during that period, what was your opinion on marriage, relationships, dating?
I had no opinion, honestly. Like, I was like, it's probably not for me. And I still don't know the kind of person I am. I don't know what I have to give to another person. So I'm going to take this time to just figure out what it is that I want in life. And in that 1.5 years' time, I didn't feel the need to be loved by somebody else. I don't know if that sounds very morbid when I say it out loud.
I think it's fine. Like you were doing the quintessential, I don't need anyone, I'm working on myself, and when I'm
Exactly.
ready.
Yeah, I will go and look for something. So I was fine. Like I was like, it's okay. But yeah, and I didn't expect to meet somebody beyond my sister's friend either. And this was totally unexpected. Like I cannot tell you how unexpected it was.
I'm going to come back and talk about that exact moment when you met and what was going on. But you've been together for 6 years now, and you've not been married. You're in a long term partnership. And this is for Natasha. Bob, we'll come to you after I've investigated her side of the story and her opinions. What is your opinion on marriage specifically as it is in the traditional sense?
I think we need to talk more about it to your Gen Z and whatever alpha, whatever generations are coming after that. We don't talk about it enough. I think our parents talk about it more than we talk about it. But my idea is that you need to get to a point where you don't need anything more from your partner. You need to be that satisfied, and the next step should be marriage. Marriage shouldn't be that step where, oh, I fall in love with my partner for a whole different
After the
reason.
fact.
Yeah, after the fact. It just needs to be something very pretty to tie it up together. The bow. You need to figure
But
out
do
the
you need a
gift.
bow? Like, do you still believe
You
in the
don't need
bow?
to. No, I don't. I don't believe in the bow at all. Honestly, I feel like even now when people ask me, people who shouldn't know ask me, and I'll be like, yeah, my husband's upstairs. So for in all that sense, we're married. Like a lot of people assume we're married and treat us like we're married. So it doesn't feel any different, honestly. And I don't think that it has to be the end result for a relationship anymore.
So Bob doesn't need to buy you a ring
No,
ever.
he doesn't have to buy me.
I mean, I'm not going to take that as any sign that that shouldn't be the case in the future. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, these are conversations we've had quite a bit in the past. And she was in a marriage before. She's already been there, done that. Now, the way I see it is a lot more caveman. I mean, marriage is just a formal relationship. As we are exposed to relationships and when we grow up, you are together with people and then you're not together with people because at some point you're not, it for some reason doesn't work. Now, I don't know why a marriage should be considered any different. And at some point it works, at some point it doesn't. Now, there are a lot of different dynamics that definitely play into it. Like families become really close, and having a child together, obviously, that makes things a lot more delicate. And I mean, for us, it's never felt the need that we have to sign a legal contract that says that we have to be together. That has never been like a prerequisite or like the end or be all for us.
So, Bob, coming to you, growing up or in your 20s, did you always envision yourself married?
I mean, as a child, yes, of course. Seeing my parents initially, how they were together, I always assumed that I would end up being married. But I think my parents had a complicated marriage for a fair bit, and a lot of it had to do with external family members. There was a lot of interference in personal dynamics, and it would lead to a lot of complications. And that kind of made me see through the flaws of my own parents' relationship. Over time, I realized, yeah, it's not what everybody portrays it out to be, what the movies portray it out to be. At the end of the day, it is just compatibility. It is just how much you are willing to work together in the relationship. That taken to a very serious level. That is what marriage is. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
But did you realize that much later? Or because you said you believed in it until you grew up? I mean, for the longest time.
Yeah, and it's only, in fact, just as I was getting to meet you, like during that phase of life, is when I'd come to that conclusion that maybe it's. So that was one aspect. Second aspect was I never knew you would find somebody, or it was possible to find someone you could be that compatible with, that you would end up be willing to spend the rest of your life with without having to seriously alter yourself. But yeah, my idea of marriage as a child growing up was that it is supposed to be one of those goals in life. But now I just see it as this, it's just one of those rituals that people have labeled as something that needs to be achieved, but it isn't. I mean, you can live without it, you can coexist without it.
Of course, there's the possibility of existing without it, but for you personally, do you think it's important to be married?
I mean, if it was all that important, we would have been married by now, right? We aren't. So it isn't. It's just there is no additional gain to be had by getting married, to be honest. Apart from, I mean, at most it would give your mom some peace of mind, I think.
But then the government comes into play, right? Like, I think that's the thing that we've also been realizing in all our conversations, that there is a legal aspect, and the maybe not in India as much, but in other countries, there are tax reductions when you're married.
If that was available here, that would be more incentive, right?
At least in India, the government doesn't really do much if you're just married.
And then if one of you chooses to move abroad, here's another reason why people have stated they've gotten married, because the government doesn't say, oh, like, I want to move just because my partner, or like not even the partner, the person I'm in love with is in that country. You essentially need a marriage certificate. And then people are like, okay, maybe now is the time to do it. Do you think that's a valid reason to get married?
We've done that. We've thought of it. I was going to apply for a role in the US, and this was, I think, at our fourth year mark or something like that, 2 years back. And we realized much later that we had to get married if we had to move to the US. So we were like, oh, how should we do this now? Like, should I apply for the transfer first, or should we get married?
So we did toy with the idea at some point.
And yes, it's probably possibly a reason why if I was moving abroad or he was moving abroad where common law partnership was not recognized, then definitely I think we're at that stage where I've gotten everything that I want from this relationship. Marriage is going to at least symbolize it. It'll be a great party for everybody.
One that I hope I'm invited to.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, man.
So yeah, we're at that phase, so it's okay. But I think after around the fourth year mark, we were in a relationship for 2 years that we didn't live together, and then we lived together for 2 years, and we figured out, oh yeah, this is the person I want to be with, or at least I figured it out. Did you too, Uncle?
You did before.
Yeah, like he was convinced the day he met you. But jokes aside, and Bob, this one's something I was also asking a few of my friends. And especially in South Asia, there are these preconceived notions that people have about divorced men and women, right? If you were on a matrimonial website, people who are not divorced usually don't click or swipe on people who are. When you met Natasha, did that even register?
No, not really. Because for me, it was, like I said, it's just a relationship that didn't work out. I mean, it's not something that I would or anyone should consider as part of your identity, so to speak.
I was just going to tell you that when I met him, I said, "Hi, I'm Natasha, and I recently got divorced." Like it had become my identity. Like I needed to get it out there so that people knew that I was not married anymore. And he didn't look at it that way. I'm quite sure in his head he'd be like, "Why is she narrating her life story to me?" Like one of the
No, I figured you just wanted to get it out of the way. And it was literally on the first day that I'm having a conversation with her. And
one of the first, I think the first 20 minutes, I had to get it off my chest.
it initially did take me a second. And then I was like, okay, awesome. This has made it a lot more easier to talk to her. And yeah, I think there is a stigma around a person being divorced. I know that a lot of people in my own family have that sort of a stigma attached to it. I have seen my own aunts and uncles talk about somebody, boy or girl, within the family itself, whose marriage hasn't worked out, and then it'll become, oh, but he's gotten divorced. Like you'd not talk about what the person does. You let that become the defining characteristic of that person. It's unfortunate. I think there is a lot more to a person than just being viable to be in a relationship.
Very recently, someone asked a cousin of mine, "Oh, what are, like, my mom's name is Regina. So, what are Regina's children doing?" And somebody else stepped in to say one is divorced and the other one's a lawyer.
Exactly. That just
like,
defines precisely what I've been trying to say.
I have accomplished so much more, and you decided to talk about just that. Like, is that the first thing that comes? I don't know. They could have just said, "I'm a gardener and she's a lawyer." I would have been happy with that too. But I was divorced. Like, it was my entire identity.
But yeah, unfortunately, that is where it is. And it's only by talking about it do people realize it's not a big deal. It's just some signature that needs to be done.
I mean, it's a person who's probably not figured out life and is going to take another chance to figure it out.
And what's wrong with that?
And what's wrong with that?
Nobody has their shit figured out. We've seen marriages last even 1/3 the amount that we've been together.
Yeah.
Nobody has their shit figured out.
And it is, in many ways, it was a wake up call for me because and I've said this on the show before, I was on these matrimonial websites in my late 20s. And I did have that notion that, oh, if they're divorced, they're like an automatic reject. And when I came into my 30s, a lot of my closest friends are divorced and they've gone on to find absolutely amazing people. It's probably true. If my parents had forced me to get married or pushed me, I would have, there's a 50-50 chance of me having made a mistake. And do I live with the mistake throughout? And then, like Natasha said, is that a label that gets attached to a person that then influences all future relationships?
But yeah, unfortunately, that is how it is.
No, but here I correct people when I hear it because I'm divorced as well. So when I hear it in a group setting, I make it a point to make it as uncomfortable for them as they made it for me. And it's changed a lot of perspectives. I think it's going to take some time. I think most divorced people don't want to talk about it. So even if somebody was saying anything, you wouldn't hear somebody else chiming in. And I was like that for a very long time. I'm like, they're talking about somebody else's divorce. How does it matter to me? But it's an identity that they've created for that person. And that's where I've been even correcting my family.
I do think it's changing though. With the increase in divorces, it's just like, oh. So let's talk about the other stigma, right? It's, Natasha, you're dating a musician. Like, what's going on here? How much money does he make? Like, how does your future get impacted by it? Do you get that a lot? Or like, because he's established himself as a successful musician, it's not as bad?
I'm not that sweet person in my family. So nobody's going to come and ask me that because they're so worried I'm going to mouth them off like on something that they should be bothering in their own lives. So I haven't gotten it from family as much. And I haven't gotten it from friends either. I actually haven't heard it from anybody.
But did you have did it ever run in your head that, oh, I'm dating a musician, can actually have a long-term partnership that or get married to one?
From a perspective whether he had the mental bandwidth or mental capacity.
Which obviously this is something that did run through my head.
It
initially.
did through me. No, like I'll tell you why. I was raised in a house where my dad always told us things were equal. Like my mom, for the brief period that she got into business, she made some black money, and then when we renovated our house, she reminded us for the next 10 years that they renovated the house because of her money and not because of my dad's corporate job that he was doing. And she would keep telling, your father took my money, your father took my money. And for us, it was, we're like, oh yeah, it's mom and dad's money. So it never, dating a musician for me wasn't, I didn't look at it at all at that point of time as an investment. I don't think it's made so much of a difference for me. I'm still living the life that I did before I met him.
So for me, when we started dating, for the first couple of months, you're obviously in that dreamy phase. When I realized that I'm actually starting to get interested in this, like really interested in this girl, there were several concerns that came to mind. One being that she earns significantly more than I do. Did 6 years ago, even till today, she does. And it always did play in my mind, how is this going to play out in the long run? If she is used to a much higher standard of living than you are, how are you going to be able to cope with it? How are you going to be able to contribute in that sort of a situation? But that's the thing. From day one, pretty much, I always got this reassurance from her that if we are in it together, we are in it together. And it is something that we are supposed to figure out together. And that did eventually happen when COVID hit. My primary source of income is live performances. There were several months where there was absolutely no income from my end. And it started becoming a panic sort of a situation for us. But she constantly gave me the reassurance that it's okay. I mean, shows are going to eventually come back. It's going to pick up. And eventually it did. At the end of 2021, I think, is when it started slowly picking up again. And we were able to gain back our balance on the finances together. So there were situations where it was an insecurity on my end because I've grown up with the mentality, or rather, my parents would condition me with the mentality that whenever you do grow up, whenever you do become a man and you have a family, you are supposed to be the breadwinner of the family.
Yeah.
And if anything, you are supposed to be earning more, if not equal, to your partner. So this ties up to one of the questions you had asked. What are those mental models that you've had to break down?
Yeah.
And this is one of those that I need to be earning more than my partner needs to be earning. And for the first couple of years, I had this insecurity about, how this is going to play out. But being together, we've been able to find our equilibrium in this relationship where it's not a burden on either of us.
I have so many follow-up questions I want to ask. Okay, I'm going to do like a whole set of rapid fire questions, and you probably know all of these coming at you. How do you manage finances? Because we know it's not it hasn't been an equal split throughout your journey. How do you manage it today?
We figured out what our expenses are. We have 2 dogs, a cat, a full-time maid that lives with us. So we know what our household expenses are. And we have a joint account that both of us have access to. So I put in funds in that, and then we figure out what needs to be done for most of the months or through the year. And then when he has his season and when he starts earning during that season, that's when he starts making contributions and putting it towards our savings. I think that's a much, much easier thing to do. And whatever we have extra expenses, it again goes back into that account, which we can spend whenever we need it.
You both have your own personal accounts.
Yes, as well.
And then you have a joint account.
Yes.
And then in the joint account, you put the operational expenses, Natasha.
Yes.
And then where's the savings account?
The savings account is, he has his own.
So I have my own savings. She has her own savings. We have our own individual investments that
have been going on for a very long time. So what happens is that
my earning is seasonal. It's not periodic like how you corporate guys have it, right? So let's say my season is from September till March. So there are going to be those months between March to September where the earning is not going to be entirely there, but it's going to be very in and out. Now, we've obviously come to some sort of a balance over time where we're able to put into that common fund to accommodate for our monthly expenses and rent and everything. And there have been months where it's been difficult, where I haven't been able to contribute as much as what would be expected. But that way, Natasha has always been there to support.
But I think from a savings standpoint, what he does is when he gets his earnings, he makes enough so that he's able to put through savings through the year.
I mean, straight up, I did whatever money I was earning was going in expenses.
Or in expenses, yeah.
There wasn't really much saving that was happening until much later in life. And once it started, then it wasn't really savings. It was more in like these mutual fund investments that would keep getting deducted from the account. So yeah, we eventually over years found our, so the first year that we stayed together took us time for us to figure out what our expenses would be together on a monthly basis, including your monthly, quarterly expenses, etc. And that over time we've been able to fine tune it to a point where we are able to live within our collective.
And then we also have different, I mean, it's the same account, Ankita, but I think, banks here have these other small, I can't remember what they're called, but they're like RDs. So if let's assume we want to go on a holiday, or let's assume we want to make a big expense for the house, what happens is we plan that backwards. So we're looking to purchase a house and we're looking to buy a new car.
Or let's say the fridge
or the fridge that we were going to buy. We're like, okay, in 6 months we want to buy this big fridge. So let's start putting it into that other fund, which is a fridge saving fund. And if there's a travel that we want to plan, that's how we plan backwards. It'll always, in between the two of us, until the band becomes so legendary, it'll always probably be me supporting a little more. But I don't think that's been too much of a pinch, because during the season time, he takes off some of those extra loads that I would have probably taken.
I'm going to use this example, though I realize a lot of our guests don't invest in luxury handbags, but I'm going to use that example anyway. So if tomorrow you were to buy a luxury handbag, would it be a negotiation, or it's like your account and you can just do whatever you want with it?
Oh no, I don't make any expense without discussing with him. Just don't. I need reassurance that I am spending money in the right path. So what I do is, like, for example, you saw me in Cape Town. I went on the spree and then picked up a bunch of things. It's because I had spoken to him the previous day and I said, hey, I'm in Cape Town. I'm going to pick up a bunch of things for the house. Is that okay? And this is the budget that I'm going to spend on it. It's like, I mean, he never says no. He's like, do what you want.
No, the thing is, like, even while she was there, I would keep getting these 10-second video calls.
Oh, do you want to see this?
See this quickly. Tell me, is this price okay? And for me, it's always, yes, it is okay. We can do it. We can manage. Unless it's on some
I don't think I do it without. The only things I hide from him and buy are plants.
I was just going to get to that. The only thing that she never asks me about is plants.
I don't know why. I also hide, and I feel like at some point he's going to be like, don't you think we have enough plants in the house? And I asked the plant guys to leave it outside the house and not ring the doorbell and deliver it. But it's probably the only thing I don't ask before I buy. And it's expensive. It's expensive, but I just don't ask. I don't know why. I'm sorry.
It's ironic because the couple we had before you, she also has a tendency to spend on plants, and that's their like, you have enough, can we please not? Because it is expensive.
It is, yeah. But he's never said no. In fact, when we were moving from Goa to Bangalore, I transported 450 plants, and he was like, yeah, we are transporting them. We're not leaving any plant behind. We're not leaving any animals behind.
So do the two of you fight?
I asked him this question, actually, and I don't think we fight as regularly. Like, if you ask me when was the last time we fought, I'd say 2.5, 3 months back. But if you ask me, I don't even like that much. Like, I'm a very, let's sort this out. I don't have time to be angry with you for a long period. Like, I don't have the patience to overthink this. So I'm
the opposite.
And he's the opposite. He's like, I need space. Can you just get out of here? Like, let me think this through and let me ponder over it. And I was like, I don't have time for this.
Every single person we've spoken to in this season The woman wants to talk it out, and the man's always, I need space, and runs away for a bit. But if you do fight, what do you fight over?
I mean, it's
Can't
a
even, it's so
random.
silly. It's so silly that I can't.
It's random. It's can't even think of what we
I
fought
think
about the last time.
I think no, I know. I think I can talk through this. I think what I wouldn't say that we start all fights because of Bob. We don't. That's because what my example's going to sound like it. But the last time we fought, it was more because he had bottled up a bunch of issues in his head and he hadn't talked to me about it because I've also been busy from one place and going to another and things like that.
Oh yeah, so I'd gotten generally stirred up about something, and I think I just vented on you.
Yeah, he's like, but you haven't done this, 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 this. And I was like, I just told you 10 days back why I haven't done it. I explained it to you. This is, and I sat down and I explained to him. It wasn't like I was just passing off some sentence. I was like, hey, you know what? I know that this has been delayed, but it's because of X, Y. I was like, why is this coming up now all of a sudden? And now I don't understand. I wish he spoke to me more often about what's going on in his brain. And I mean, I may not be able to give you a solution, but I'll be able to get it off your chest. And I feel like we'll probably have lesser fights because of that. It's usually because of, you agree?
I agree. 100%.
Yeah, it's usually because he's bottled something and then suddenly something stirred it up in his brain and he's like, here, take on a platter,
100%.
all of it. And I'm like, 1 minute. Where is all? I'm a very immediately like, yeah, my brain's not working. It's not working for XYZ reason. After I blurt it out, I go take a quick nap. I feel like a nap solves everything.
So, okay, so you also kind of evade a little bit.
No, I talk and then evade. Like I would
Okay.
go talk to him. Why are you not doing this, XYZ? Finish it and then go take a nap. Because then I wake up with a more calmer mind. Otherwise, I'll keep going back to him and keep giving him a piece of my mind, which I shouldn't.
No, so for me, every time a fight happens or a heated argument or a disagreement happens, obviously, like I take time to myself. And 99% of the time, it is because obviously something has triggered me from that situation. 99% of the time, I'm not able to articulate what has triggered me in that situation, right?
And then she's here wanting to talk it out.
That time taken is just to be sure of what I'm upset about. Right.
Whatever you're telling me, as if I'm going to write it in some paper and then submit it some quote or something. Like, why does it have to be that perfect?
It doesn't have to be perfect, correct? But
he wants to articulate it in his brain. I'm like, I don't have time for this. And I literally, what I mean by I don't have time for this is like, I don't even know how long we're going to be alive, as human beings. And if you're going to spend 10 days out of
not 10 days.
10 days of every fight we have trying to reconsolidate your brain, I don't have.
So how long does it take you? A few hours, a few days?
No.
For me,
it takes a couple of days for me to reset, recalibrate, or just to figure out what is upsetting about the situation before I'm able to think through it.
And I'm able to articulate really well. So you know what he does these days? He learns from what I say. He takes those sentences and dialogues and he puts it in his brain. And when I'm talking to him about it in the next fight, and then he's able to tell me. And I was like, didn't I say this the last time? He's like, yeah, made sense.
Okay.
I do that.
Yeah. You've stolen a lot of my dialogues. And then you're repeating them to me.
You'll soon find them in the lyrics of his music also.
I mean, that's how inspiration comes, man. Great art is always stolen. That is the base fact.
Because you talked about naps, we've been asking around the question. Do you sleep in the same bed? Do you sleep in separate beds? How does it work?
We sleep in the same bed. In fact, we have a really huge king size bed.
This bed journey has been... it's been interesting. I mean, we've always slept on the same bed, obviously.
Yeah, but I don't think he is ever... I'm the first person he's living with. And I'm a huge need body contact kind of person. And before him, it was my dog. Like my dog sleeps on the bed with us. So I have to stick to him and sleep. I don't know why. And the only time I will do it is when sleep away is when I'm angry. And it's not in another room. I just sleep, like I make a wall between us like 5-year-olds.
Like you put pillows in between?
Yeah. No, there is this imaginary space that has just, and that is when I know that she's upset. And usually she's the type who wants to resolve an issue before going to bed. And so this is one of the things I've definitely picked up on and I'm going to work on. I mean, it's a work in progress, right? The relationship is never, there is no perfect point.
No,
in the
he's
relationship.
gotten mad at me once and gone and slept in the other room. I went and woke him up and I said, "You can be mad at me, but there's no sleeping in another room. Just come back to bed and sleep in your own
Yeah,
bed."
that's what makes her special, you know. That no matter what, it's never going to be that we are going to sleep apart.
Yeah. I don't think I can do that.
It's always.
Do any of you snore?
So he snores. My French bulldog.
I told her
snores.
on the very first day because I know for a lot of people it's a deal breaker, right? Like how
Well,
she
not
told
a
me
deal
she was
breaker, but deal breaker to sleep in the same bed.
like how she told me she was divorced on the very first day. I told her I snore on the very first day. It's one of those things that you just have to get it out of the way.
And I was like, no, I don't think you can be louder than my dog because my dog is a Frenchie. He's a flat-nosed dog. He snores so loudly the neighbors can hear him.
And she told me that. That was her response to me snoring. That I have a Frenchie who snores. And my first instinct was, how bad could a dog snore? Until I actually met Bruce.
He's very loud. So it's like an orchestra in the night. Our lab also snores. And without that, I can't sleep. I think I've just tuned myself to...
They all sleep in the same room, like all the
we all
snorers.
sleep in the same room. All of us sleep in the same room, and there are 3 of
There
them
are 5
snoring.
of us on the bed.
That's why I said it's a
every
huge
night.
bed. Like it's a really big size bed. It's a custom made bed so that everybody fits on it.
But are you able to sleep with all the snoring, Bob? Like, did you
Yeah,
anticipate that? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, both of us are able to sleep. Both of us have never really faced an issue ever. More than anything, I was worried about how she sleeps, and she doesn't snore, right?
Yeah, I don't snore at
she
all.
doesn't snore at all. I don't know how she sleeps through 3 of us every single night. Literally, I think she has woken up early and taken a recording of all 3
and it's in
of
all
us in sync.
Like I'm like,
It is a cappella that was happening. She'll record it and both of us will laugh over it, but I'm always at always how she's able to sleep through it. She's like a dead body when she goes off to sleep.
But
And then talk to me about this cuddling situation, because I know my partners was like, I can cuddle for like 2 minutes, then I need space.
I don't think I gave him too much time to complain about it. He knows the drill. He sleeps in one corner of the bed and then I just get attached and he's completely okay with it.
No, so over the years, what has happened is we have this automatic shift of how we hold each other, and that is entirely dependent on one of our dogs.
Okay.
Bruce. So when we get into bed, Bruce likes sleeping next to Natasha. So he'll go and huddle up next to her.
He'll spoon with me.
So he's the little spoon, Natasha's the big spoon. And I will go and hold them both from behind, and that is how the night starts. At some point in the night, the flip happens because Bruce will come over to my side. And this is every single night.
Every single night, like clockwork.
Like clockwork. So that is the time when Natasha turns around and holds me, and yeah.
Yeah, but it's a cuddle situation.
Throughout.
Yeah, throughout. If I wake up in the night and I'm not cuddling him, then I'll hold him and I will make him a little uncomfortable and he's like, go to sleep.
Okay, so we have to take Bob's phone number, and then every guy who troubles us ever in pushing us away saying we need personal space while sleeping, he'll be like, go talk to Bob.
No, I mean, no, see, that's the thing. Because I think that is how the situation has developed, because we had animals who we have both been comfortable sleeping in the bed with us. And that's the thing. The reason why I said this entire bed thing was a journey for us, because for the 4 years that we were in Goa, we had a relatively small bed. And we have animals that refuse to sleep anywhere else. Our Frenchie will cry and bring the house down if we don't let him on the bed with us. And our lab will start pawing and basically not let us be in peace unless we have them on the bed.
So where does the lab sleep? I know Bruce sleeps like... Okay.
It's like a jigsaw puzzle. Every night there is a bit of a battle in the beginning to get people into position.
Yeah.
Every
And
single
then-
night.
And it's like a game. Like with Leia, I keep telling him, don't put the lab on the bed before I get on the bed because she likes sleeping in my spot. She's a mean little thing. She wants to sleep next to him and every single time. So I usually tell him, let me get into my spot. Then you can put Leia up because she'll take her own spot. And then Bruce is small spoon, big spoon.
That shift, yeah. It's a mess.
Yeah.
Every single night, but it's fun. It's something.
It's a good mess.
I'm sorry.
I don't
if
think-
I'm sorry.
I
if
think
invaded
I
your
can-
space. It's too late now.
I think I can speak on your behalf. I don't think either of us can live without that chaos.
Yeah,
every
in the night. Figuring out that chaos in the night. Yeah.
Yeah.
The last question that I have for two of you is a question that you can throw back at us is what is one thing that you're curious about and how it works with other couples? Because there are like aspects like how is the finance managed, how do you sleep at night? These are not like everyday dinner conversations that you have with other couples. And then the last couple we asked that we want to know like this whole conflict resolution styles. What's one thing that you are curious about? And we'll ask our future guests to answer.
I have. How long do people stay angry with each other? Like, what is a normal time for someone to reconcile? Because for me, like I said, Ankita, I'm an immediate. Let's talk, solve, and figure it out. I mean, it needs to be like how friends figure this out, right? It needs to be that easy. And he's like, no, need space. Will not figure it out without space. And even for me, that one day, I'm probably being unreasonable. It's a lot. Like that one day I will not be able to operate normally.
I have now done that adjustment where I'm like, okay, a few days, go do what you want. I'm not gonna go hopping mad, bouncing from wall to wall. But
Yes. What's the reasonable limit of time that we need to give men to space out before they
So I've been over time slowly reducing my
Yeah.
time off.
I've noticed that. I appreciate you for that. Thank you.
It's a work in progress.
The last thing, I think it took us about 3 days to resolve it, and those 3 days is just a lot.
We started talking the day after only, but I think that talking took 2 days
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
through.
I was like, what even happened to you? Tell me, like this was the same thing. Outburst because not talking.
we'll investigate. I did have one question in my head, but for some reason I can't. I'm like, Jesus, wait, it just came to me. Yes, sorry. What about kids? Are you gonna have kids? Are you not gonna have kids? Have you had a discussion?
We have. Biologically, we're not going to make babies, but I think we've discussed that if we ever do want to have kids, it'll be to adopt.
And we have a couple of things that we want to get done
Before we get there.
in order to take that step. So,
I mean, I've been reading a lot on new studies that say that the older you are, the better a parent you can be. So I feel like maybe if we do want to have kids, it's good that I'll be maybe 5 years down the line. I mean, I know from a long-term perspective, the kid's going to be 20, you're going to be
Yeah.
60, and all of that is
That's the part that horrifies me. I'm like, I don't want to be like a 60-year-old having a teenage romping around.
even if you don't have kids, is that such a
No,
bad
it's not. No, we're not.
idea to play with?
We're not keen on it. I feel like we're children ourselves. Sometimes we're such kids, and in that scenario, I cannot even imagine raising a child myself. Where we're irresponsible. And
See, don't ever feel like we're too late in this.
No, we're not.
Right?
It's not about
It's
that. No.
it's not about that.
It's not. I think we're having too much fun to be invested in somebody else right now. Honestly, if you ask me, and I think that needs a whole village. If you have to raise a child, and we're not there. We're not there yet. If we are, it's not going to happen through IVF and all of that. I think that's a lot to ask from women, and he doesn't. So I'm so grateful for that. It's going to be
Okay, now I'm really, really going to let you go. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being so honest and sharing your stories. I know that there's a lot of fun snippets in there.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so
pleasure.
much. Thank you so much, Ankita, for having us.
On that note, we are